Donald Trump's quest for a Nobel Peace Prize is effectively over because the ceasefire that he brokered in Gaza just 9 days ago is over. And for the entire media that praised Donald Trump, for Time magazine that gave him a whole cover for his work in Gaza, all of them have egg on their face today because the Nobel Prize could not be further away. And this is once again the media sane washing and essentially minimizing what Donald Trump says while amplifying things that he does much greater than they need to be. So let's break it down because both Israel and Hamas today have accused each other of violating the ceasefire in place that has been in place for 9 days now. And while this ceasefire, folks, was already hanging on by a thread for several days, but today it's effectively over. Israel has launched a wave of airstrikes across southern Gaza in response to what it claims is a Hamas attack on Israeli troops near the demarcation line, the yellow line where Israeli troops said they pulled back. Israel says the attacks were a response to Hamas gunfire and rocket-propelled grenade fire against its troops in Rafah. Hamas says that it's unaware of any incidents or clashes in Rafah, accusing Israel of a deliberate escalation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered firm action across Gaza, instructing intelligence chiefs and military chiefs to strike, quote, terror targets. Gaza's civil defense agency says that 11 people have already been killed across the Gaza Strip this weekend. That number is likely only set to rise. Israel's defense minister warned that Hamas would, quote, pay a heavy price if further ceasefire breaches were to occur. Hamas says it hasn't breached the ceasefire. Hamas says that it located another body of another Israeli hostage. Senior Israeli politicians have voiced growing skepticism about the ceasefire's future. And the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt will now stay closed until, quote, further notice. And today we learned that Israel is stopping the flow of all humanitarian aid into Gaza until further notice. That alone, on its own, would be a violation of the ceasefire executed in Egypt just 9 days ago. You can't claim that the President of the United States deserves a Nobel Prize for creating peace in the Middle East when just 9 days after this ceasefire was executed, there's no peace. It's quite the contrary. We're back in a lot of ways to square one. And I got a lot of heat. I got a lot of heat from Republicans on the internet because I refused to kind of amplify the work that Donald Trump did, calling it this great achievement in the Middle East. I refuse to do so because I know that with anything in the Middle East, anything related to Israel and Gaza and Hamas and all the parties in the Middle East, nothing ever actually holds. It hasn't held for now 2+ years since October 7th. It hadn't held in decades since 1947. None of this has held. There is no peace in the Middle East, and that's why I refuse to give Donald Trump credit for a ceasefire that just 9 days later is already broken. And a president who wants a ceasefire, or a president who wants the Nobel Peace Prize, is now openly declaring war on another United States city, San Francisco. Today, Donald Trump said that he will be sending in the National Guard into San Francisco, once again name-checking the Insurrection Act of 1807, saying that it gives him, quote, unquestioned power. Unquestioned power. That's not true. He also claimed that 50% of American presidents have used the Insurrection Act on U.S. soil. That's not true. And yet, if President Biden said just 5% of what Donald Trump said today, the media would be criticizing him to no end. Republicans would be calling for the 25th Amendment. And well, at the end of the day, Biden, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Reagan, Carter, you name them, they were held to a higher standard than Donald Trump because for some reason, people like to sane wash what Donald Trump says and at the same time, claim that Donald Trump is this great president when he just does one thing that's somewhat positive, one thing that somewhat moves our country forward. And it's a problem. So today, The Nobel Peace Prize hopes of Donald Trump are effectively dead in the water. Now, Mike Johnson, that didn't stop Mike Johnson from going on air today and saying that he's going to give the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, or at least nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. I want you to check this out.
A historic peace deal that just by sheer force of his personality, President Trump was able to push through. And I think he greatly deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. In fact, Speaker Ohana of the Knesset and I have joined forces to try to collect as many signatures as we can from other speakers and leaders of parliaments around the free world to join us in co-nominating President Trump for the next Nobel Peace Prize. There's no one's more deserving than that.
Johnson is still claiming that he is going to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember, Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize this year. The next time the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded will be next year in October. And while according to Mike Johnson, he's already nominated Donald Trump of the Peace Prize on the same day that the United States federal government is shut down, the same day that troops may not be paid coming in November, that SNAP benefits may be interrupted starting in November, that healthcare may soon disappear for millions, and that the same day that the ceasefire deal that predicated all these Nobel Peace Prize nominations by Mike Johnson and Israeli leaders and folks across the globe has essentially, in all intents and purposes, has fallen apart. And so it's the media's job to tell the truth and to tell it like it is. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving you the facts. This isn't partisan in any way. This is just the truth. The truth of the matter is that the Gaza ceasefire that Donald Trump was paraded about for many days is now effectively done. Could it be revived? Sure, it could be revived. But then we might be back in this situation in a week from now, or in 2 weeks from now, or in 3 weeks from now. We don't know. Nothing in the Middle East holds for a long period of time. And anyone who thinks or who thought that this one would be lying to themselves. Truly would be lying to themselves. Because there's no suggestion at all that this ceasefire deal would have held. No suggestion. And clearly, as we see today, well, the ceasefire deal is over practically before it even began. 9 days. That's it. 9 days. And they were already declaring Donald Trump winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, declaring Donald Trump king of kings, declaring Donald Trump, giving him the Time magazine cover, saying that he has done more for the Middle East than President Biden had, even though the fact that President Biden brought back 150 plus Israeli hostages, that doesn't get reported. But when Donald Trump gets 20 back, no one's saying that's a bad thing. That's a good thing, right? Bringing the hostages home, releasing Palestinian detainees, that's a good thing. But you can't just say that because Donald Trump did that, well, it's so much better than anything anyone else has done. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to support my work. I'll see you soon.